When you look at the Bass Pro Shops website, there's 250 different calls for sale. How do you figure out which one's gonna be perfect for you? And I'll tell you, based on my experience, that every day is different when it comes to turkey calls. And so that's why I've always encouraged people to spend time learning and practicing with all the different calls. So as we break down turkey calls, let's look at some of the different options that you have available. The old box call. The box call comes in a variety of sizes. It's easier to use than probably the other calls that we're going to talk about. A nice rhythmic motion back and forth with them will generate the sounds that you're looking for. And there's a lot of different tricks and tips that you can build into it as you become more experienced with them. But most all turkey calls right on the back are going to give you directions on what you need to do to make the basic sounds out there. So when you start looking at box calls, like I said, you look at the Bass Pro Shops website, there's a variety of them that you can pick and choose from that are going to help you be successful. Now let's move on to a mouth call, a diaphragm call. This is probably one of the harder calls for a lot of people to use. For me personally, it's the most difficult one. And when I get one that works perfectly, I protect that like it's a $100 bill. In fact, it's probably worth a $1,000 bill when I get one tuned, and that would be the same for a lot of guys out there. Just understand, you've got to trim these, you've got to find the ones that particularly work for you and fit for you. Next up is the slate call. As you get into slate calls, you're basically looking at ways to tune them, to set them up so that they're going to be prepared for what you're going to look at doing. And I often will carry 2 or 3 different slate calls because each one of them, based on the striker and the composition of the call, has a different tone. And at different times of the year, they tend to respond to one or the other in a different manner. But this is a call that I love to use when they're up close. And basically, when I'm doing that, I like to have a conversation with the hens if there's a hen out there. I want to mimic what she's saying. If I hear her doing one sound, I want to do the exact same sound back, and it will help me be successful in bringing some toms around. So don't just necessarily think when it comes to calling turkeys, you have to limit it to trying to attract the toms. If you can get the hens in, you can have a party and have a conversation with those hens, those toms often are not far behind.